But I think it's an important point that you bring forward is that in my zeal sometimes I can't leave you behind.
Right.
Because if I leave you behind and try and run off and make a decision to do something, it will affect other parts of our relationship because then
Yeah.
you don't feel like you've been heard, you don't feel like your opinion is valued, and then it could go on and on and on.
And sometimes going quickly, we forget things.
Yes.
We miss specific details that are important to the bigger picture. And so I think that's why it's important to me. But on the other side of that, for me, like I can easily miss out if I wait too long on certain decisions. And so I think that it does work well together. Like it's a yin and a yang. We typically will get there together. We typically make decisions together. I don't feel like we're ever at a place where one is super sacrificing and the other one is not, and all of that. That doesn't typically happen. It's just the process. You know what I mean? Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all. Let's get into it. What is up with you?
Oh, it's one of them days.
Look, we're coming to you all with a follow-up.
Yes, hot off the press.
Right. We talked about the Beyonce Effect and To Beyonce or Not in London. And we made our decision. And so, like good, responsible podcasters, we're coming back to let you guys know what we decided.
Yes. And it wasn't an easy decision. And I will say that we did enough research to make a good decision for us. It might be a different decision for other people, but it was a good decision for us.
Right.
So we're going to talk about, specifically all the things that we did to kind of come to the conclusion that we have.
I think, I told you I'm in my YOLO phase, but I'm YOLO to a point because I'm still a financially responsible individual with long-term goals and objectives and short-term goals. So when you make decisions, you got to make all the considerations for all these things. So what did we end up doing?
Before you say that, so yeah, you said you are responsible, like you are a YOLO up to a point. And I'm a person who has to know all the details, all the numbers before I can feel good about making a decision.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest right now because, these are always moments to be honest with ourselves. They get on my nerves sometimes.
What?
You and all the details.
Oh my gosh. So that's interesting you say that because
like, let's just do it. We've talked about it. We've decided. Let's go.
Yes. So the flip side of that is you being so gung-ho and ready to go gets on my nerves sometimes where I'm like, I need a minute. Like, I need to sleep on this decision. I got to do my numbers, or I get stressed out.
Yes.
And I can't, I get not afraid. That wouldn't be the word. It's just that because I don't have
you get trepidatious,
all the information, I just don't like parting with my money. And so I have to literally, I do a budget for everything.
I think this is such a good conversation because there's so many couples out there that go through these same emotions, these ranges of emotions where one is ready to go and one is holding back. And it's like, well, why you hold me back from being great? I want to go do what I want to do.
Now, and here's what I always tell people when I have coached people, and that's the situation where one person has a certain affinity to either spend money or one person has a certain affinity to save money. What I say is you need both parties, right?
Absolutely.
So with you, I have more fun.
Yeah.
And with me, you have more money.
Come on now.
Because I am trepidatious about spending it, I like to save it.
Now, let me be clear. We are more on the same page 90% of the time
It's
than
just the
we
how we
are.
get there.
Yes, because sometimes, you have your Excel spreadsheets and all of your categories. I have my back of the napkin math. Sometimes I'll be like, bam, yeah, it all adds up. Let's go. But then sometimes I'm a stickler about things, and I think it's a yin and yang effect where we
Yeah.
go back and forth, and it's completely necessary, I think, in most relationships and in most situations, just so that you don't get so far out to one side that you forget that you have long term, short term goals, and
Hmm.
you still got to be within the guardrails. And like, I'm ready to go typically, but in my mind, I've already established my guardrails. So I've already vetted out my comfort level.
Yeah.
But I think it's an important point that you bring forward is that in my zeal sometimes I can't leave you behind.
Right.
Because if I leave you behind and try and run off and make a decision to do something, it will affect other parts of our relationship because then
Yeah.
you don't feel like you've been heard, you don't feel like your opinion is valued, and then it could go on and on and on.
And sometimes going quickly, we forget things.
Yes.
We miss specific details that are important to the bigger picture. And so I think that's why it's important to me. But on the other side of that, for me, like, I can easily miss out if I wait
Hmm.
too long on certain decisions. And so I think that it does work well together. Like, it's a yin and a
Right.
yang. We typically will get there, together. We typically make decisions together. It's not, I don't feel like we're ever at a place where one is super sacrificing and the other one is not, and all of that. That doesn't typically happen. It's just the process.
Well,
You know what
look,
I mean?
look, let's get back to the topic at hand. So, we told you guys that we were gifted some tickets to see Beyonce in London, which the show actually takes place tomorrow.
Or
And
this week. This week.
yeah, oh yeah, you're right. It takes place this week, and you know, this episode will air right after the Beyonce show. And so, we really took our time and we checked in the airfare, we checked in the hotel, we thought about the cost for food, and even to get there, we had to get from somewhere to New York, then fly from New York to London. So it was the whole getting from one place to another, having a hotel, then going from New York to London, having a hotel, then going to the concert. And I didn't even think about buying t-shirts and gear. That wasn't even factored in.
Mm-mm.
But it was going to cost a pretty penny.
So we would have had to spend several $1,000s, let's put it that way, to save $1,000 on the tickets because they were great tickets. But
Yeah.
and so we ultimately chose.
Well, before we even say that,
Uh-huh.
I think you and we went on a walk one day and we were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, does this make sense? It's like, we said YOLO, all this, all that. Then I was like, this don't feel, the numbers and the math is not math. And to just do an impromptu trip like this is like it's like somebody's vacation for the year,
For sure. For
for
sure.
a family of four. And I was like,
I would even say for two people, like a nice vacation for two people is
oh,
what
it
this.
definitely would have been a nice vacation for two people, but
Yeah.
the whole thing,
Yeah.
you could have taken a family of four on vacation. And now I know people who are listening and say, well, you could have stayed here, did this, or cut costs. Look, I know how I roll. I know how we roll. Okay. And I'm not staying in no hostels or any, second tier hotels. It's not how I roll.
Yeah, because we got bougie daddy over here.
Look,
So
look, that's one thing I don't mess with. I'm always gonna stay in a good hotel.
that's right.
So, and after going overseas a few times, the economy seats, man.
Yeah, see, and that's the other
Like,
part of it is going overseas to London would have cost us more because of the type of travel we
the
needed to
way
be
the way
doing.
my knees work, you know,
The way these knees is set up.
I'm gonna need some room. So
We were on this walk And we were talking it through. And I really feel like a lot of the times when I need to get an understanding about something or clarity or vision or just settle it in my mind and heart, like a walk is good.
Yeah.
We went together that time, and we started talking about what's in the way of this trip, not the finances, but the logistics of the trip.
We didn't even get into that part of it.
No, you mentioned all of the logistics that we
Yeah.
had to go through, but I'm saying in terms of we had something prior to this trip that was sort of bumping up against
That's
it,
what I'm
which
saying.
limited our
Yeah.
ability to get there on a certain day and that kind of thing. And so it's like, well, hold on a second. You know, it's getting to this place where it's like, does this make sense? And so then it rolls up another option that I thought of while we were on the walk. I said, now this is gonna sound like it's left field, but what if we did this instead?
Right.
And that was so much more attractive, and it felt that there
Felt
was an
right.
ease
Yeah.
to that decision.
So our daughters went and saw Beyonce in Chicago. Loved the show and just really had a good time. And I love it that, you know, two sisters going on a little trip and, you know, sister bonding time. That was cool. But our youngest daughter kept talking about the fact that there was a Kendrick Lamar and SZA concert. And it was gonna be taking place, you know, we were gonna be in Chicago doing some things, and she was like, it's happening while we're there. And we
She
were
said
like,
it a few times.
I was like, if you don't leave me alone about this concert.
Without asking us if she could go, if we could go, or she could go, whatever.
Right. So ultimately, we decided that it's cool for us to go on a trip together, to go to London to see Beyonce. But we felt like it was more impactful to have all four of us go on a trip to Chicago and see Kendrick and SZA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait a minute, we already gonna be here for some other stuff. We already got one hotel that we have to pay for. So that was gonna happen regardless. And then we said, well, now we can have our older daughter just fly in town, which she got her airfare, and then we just get a hotel for them, and then we can get some real good tickets. I was like, I was like, you can get it, you can get it, you can get it.
So that saved us money. So like
Yes.
all of what we would have been trying to do, all the logistics to go see Beyonce in London, it would have cost us more money.
It would cost us almost double.
Yeah, for sure.
It was close to double. It wasn't quite double, but
Yeah.
it would cost almost double.
Right. For some free tickets. So it's like, what are
Right.
you willing to do? And I'm like, I don't think I'm willing to do all that just to say I got free tickets in London to see Beyonce. I think it made more sense to us to invest in our kids. And actually, so what we ended up doing, which was really cool, is we ended up surprising her. And while we were there, we picked up our other daughter from the airport without the youngest knowing. And so, and she started to catch on when the drive was taking too long and we were getting up to the airport.
We not going to dinner. We're going to the airport.
So we picked her up, but as soon as she got in the car, we were like, all right, so Faith isn't here just because we're in Chicago and to see you do your thing next. We're here. She's here so that we could go to this Kendrick and SZA concert. And she was like, "No, what?" She was so excited.
Right.
She was so excited.
I must admit that this is the first time that we actually went to a concert with like our adult children, and they were like, we had so much fun. They were looking at us like, we've never seen you all like this, because we were hyped.
We had us a good time.
Yeah,
we had a ball. We had a ball. So that felt like the right decision for us at that moment.
Yeah, and it felt like the right thing on a number of levels, because we talk about relationships and money, and after you're in relationship with one another and then you start to have children and your children become adults, it's still about relationship, and it's about family and family dynamics, because those dynamics change and you have to take advantage of the opportunities when they're there. And for us to really just continue to invest in our children and our relationships with them and spend time, like just seeing Chicago, hanging out. I think I broke my feet. We were walking like 25,000 steps
Yeah.
a day, because, Chicago is really a walking city. and then to get to go to the concert, and it was just we had a great time.
We had a good time.
And reflecting back on the cost, I have like zero regrets because we started to plan, which is always important. You're always gonna get a plan from the two of us. And then we started to budget for it. So it wasn't like we were just, jumping into the deep. We said, okay, how much makes sense to spend on this? And we like looked at a bunch of hotels to try and find the best cost, that were within my parameters for a hotel. And we just made the decision that worked the best for us. And it still, like we said, was about half of the cost that it would have, taken to get to London and see Beyonce, which I hear she's doing some special things out there for the concert,
Yeah.
but double for your trouble, nah, I'm out.
And here's the thing, in hindsight, so now looking back, I can honestly say, I don't feel any fear of missing out,
Yeah,
that
no
concert
FOMO.
is going to happen this week. And the other part of this is I would have felt like I missed out, honestly, if we didn't choose this option, right? Because we were right there in Chicago. Like it was what, couple miles away from where we were staying. I mean, it just made so much
It
more
made
sense.
sense.
And so that just felt so good. And now I'm like, that's a part of the decision making as well, is
Right.
can you fast forward and say, would you have regret, And there's several people who are no longer with us that I didn't see in concert, um and so I think that is a part of it too, is just opening up this space and saying, okay, we can do this together, because we had never done that, with our kids before. Not in that way. Me and the girls saw Taylor Swift a couple times, but as young adults, as they're growing, and just also being interested in what they're interested in.
That was back when they were basically kids. They were
right, but
they were in their Swiftie era.
Yes,
like,
I was a Swiftie too.
Yeah, well,
were you a
I was
Swiftie?
out. Nah.
You weren't gonna spend any money. I'm taking you to concerts that you didn't want to go to too.
I know, I did it because I love you.
I appreciate that.
But
it was a good concert.
Well, it depends on which one you're talking about.
Anyway.
I went because I love you.
Which one are you talking
I
about?
spend time with you.
Which one are you talking about?
Sometimes I'm like, yep.
Which one?
I'm here.
I want to know which one you talking about.
I don't know.
You don't know.
Don't matter.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring up Josh Groban.
I didn't go. Did I go to that?
You went to a concert with me to Josh Groban.
That's because I love you.
I think he was there with. I don't think, was he there with Harry Styles? He was there with somebody.
No.
But
I was whatever it was. I was there.
You don't even remember it.
Now Kendrick and SZA. I'm gonna remember this one.
I know. I have
They
different,
put on a show.
I have different genres that I'm into, or different styles that I'm into.
It's all
as well.
good.
I appreciate you
what?
coming along for the ride.
I accept you as you are.
Thank you. And I accept you as you are too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but I think this trip though, we got a lot of ancillary benefit. I mean, we always talk about the cost and counting the cost, and that's really what we did. But there was like the blues fest that was going on in Chicago. It was free. We were able to go over there, and little did I know how much my kids like the blues and live music. So we were able to go to Millennial Park and see that, and go do a little shopping. I mean, we basically all just window shopped, and but it was just cool. We had a few meals together and just laughed and enjoyed each other. And I think that to me is worth the investment.
Sure.
And it was more important to engage in something with them than to have us just go off and live our best life and be great and be over the pond watching Beyonce.
But I will say, I'm not gonna. I mean.
Oh yeah, wait. Hold on.
What?
Hold on. I just gotta tell the people.
What you gotta tell them?
She's still over here navigating now to go see Beyonce.
I
stateside.
I am. So I'm like, there's still some shows. I can get some last minute tickets, and I'm like, man, do I still try and figure it out? And I
Right.
mean, because it's so much cheaper. Like the truth of the matter is that I could still do something stateside
Yeah. And it'll
and
be a fraction of the
it's
cost.
less cost even with this trip we just took.
Yeah.
Like so
True.
it's still within a reasonable
True.
amount of
True.
money that I would be willing to
And we
spend.
still get to see her,
Yeah.
but I hope that as people are listening to this, like this is just one scenario of how you have to navigate life and make decisions, because life is all about trade-offs, because if you're spending money on something.
Mhm.
So you're deciding to do something versus something else. And that's what we did. And I think you have to have a process that you utilize to make the decision that's going to be the best decision for you, where you'll get the maximum bang for your buck and you won't put yourself in financial straits by
Mhm.
making that decision.
Mhm.
And though we could have made either decision and financially been okay, it's still important to make good, sound decisions that, make, I just say they make good financial sense, but you also can experience things and live a little.
And here's the thing that I find to be challenging sometimes is that we stay okay, first of all, we might enter a YOLO phase earlier than we should, and or it's earlier than is wise. So you can't keep saying yes to everything when you have a lot of debt to pay off, or you have nothing in savings, or your
Hmm.
your income is topsy turvy. You're gonna have to decide what is a no or a not now. You're going to
Right.
have to decide that. And I think for many years, you and I said no to certain things, or we didn't
We
tempt our,
prioritized the things that were the biggest priority.
but we also didn't tempt ourselves
Yes.
with stuff that, was over the top or it didn't make sense in that moment. So I do think that we may be in what we're considering our YOLO phase, but we've earned the right to be here. And I think
Yes.
that is an important distinction. And I don't want folks to feel like, oh, well, I can't do it now or whatever. You're always saying yes to something, even when you say no
It's funny.
to something
It's
else.
funny. Like, I forgot, while we were on this trip, we said something to our oldest daughter, and she was like, "Well, I don't have money for that." We were like, "What? You just bought a plane ticket to go on a trip with your friends somewhere. Like, you made a decision. You don't
Mhm.
have the money because you made a decision to go on another trip,
That's right.
or you got your hair braided and you
Hmm.
spent $200. Oh, you made the decision because you're spending the money somewhere else, and you can't do like this particular thing that you want to do right now."
Right. And that's what I think we don't consider is that the money is going somewhere. It's just, is it in alignment with what your
Right.
priorities are? And are you do what, how much are you spending? Are you willing to sacrifice or to say no to something so that later on you can say yes? I mean, quite honestly, quite literally, anytime you're saving money, like you're literally putting money into a savings account or retirement account, that money is being used for something. You said no to something else to say yes to
Right.
whatever that is. And we don't tend to think of it like that. We tend to say, um, I have the money, I'm gonna just try and do it all, or we tend not to think about that there was a choice made, right? Or you dined out and you're spending this money on dining out, or you went on a vacation with your family and you made a choice that meant something else couldn't happen, or you made a choice to go into debt, right? And so we don't consider the fact that you can do some things. The question is,
Can't
where
do
can you make
can't do
room?
all things.
Right. So, and that's the thing. We got to just consider what it is that we're doing, and is that in alignment with where we're trying to go?
You know, I've been seeing these articles pop up, and it talks about like the appropriate amount of savings you should have by generation. And so I always, scroll through and look at, I get the Gen X and see
So
what.
really specific age groups.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we're part of Generation X, and so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
where are we supposed to be? And this one article I was looking at, it said like, you should have basically just shy of 200. I mean, just shy of $300,000
Mm-hmm.
in between retirement or like a 401k, IRA, and some physical savings. And I was like, man, I do not feel like I would be in position to retire
Mm-hmm.
like effectively with $300,000. And people might say, well, that's $300,000. That's a lot of money. Yeah, well, how long you expect to be retired
Like
and be able
working.
to
Mm-hmm.
live, or are you just going to be working for the rest of your life,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it's not just about, I look at retirement differently. It's not just about stopping from work. It's stopping from doing one thing to embrace probably another thing,
Mm-hmm.
a passion or something else. But it's just shifting, from one thing to another. Because whenever that day comes and I retire, I'm not gonna stop working. I'm gonna start doing something else or something that is a passion or a
Mm-hmm.
business or whatever. But I found that to be interesting because we prioritize, saving
Mm-hmm.
for retirement so that we could, be in a position to, when we're at the edge of retirement age, say, you know what, I want to retire now. Or I like what I'm doing, I can keep doing it, but have the option to do such. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we prioritize that early so that as we get closer to that time frame, we can make a different decision. Because after seeing that article, I saw a video where it was a guy who was 80 years old and it was showing him going and working at Walmart as
Mm-hmm.
a greeter. And he was doing it like 4 or 5 days a week. Not because he wanted to, because he had to.
Yeah.
Because he worked at a major corporation for 29 years and
Mm-hmm.
that company closed and he lost his. He said he was a year away from getting a full like pension
Mm-hmm.
and they closed and he didn't get his pension. And so he had to literally downsize in house, bought another house, still had a mortgage, but then he had to work. And
Yeah.
he said they would never pay the mortgage off on the house that they lived in. And he's 80 years old. I was
That's
like, that's
that
just,
is not the future that I desire.
that is
That is not at all.
not at all.
And I actually had a client say to me, I think I can work, well past 70. I love what I do. And
Oh
this is
my
a young
God.
cat. He's like in his
No
30s,
way.
early 30s. And but he's saying, like, I love what I do. I feel very connected to it and purposeful in that work. And he was like, I think I can work another 40 years. And I'm like, that's cool. But you never know if you will be able to do it.
Right.
You never know what life is going to bring you. So we might have the best of intentions, but sometimes life hits you sideways and
Hmm.
things occur and it causes you to have to take a back step or slow down. I had another client who was an attorney, and due to health concerns, even that work slowed down for him and he wasn't able to work past the age of 60. And he wanted to, and this is a sit down type of job. It wasn't a lot of physical labor,
But it's
but
taxing
it
mentally.
it was a lot, and he wasn't able to work beyond that. And so you think, oh, I've got enough, I can, work physically, I'll be able to do it, mentally I'll be able to do it, and financially I'll be able to do it. So I'll spend my money now. I'm going to work a long time. You just don't know. And so we
Right.
can't presume upon the future. We just literally can't. And I think and I want to be clear that when we were in debt, we did go on a vacation. We did it differently. And we probably did a little something every year while we were in debt.
But
Um,
it was on a much
it was on a
smaller scale.
Yeah, so we're not saying never go on vacation, but we didn't enter YOLO until recently. We've been out of debt for over 20 years, and we didn't
Still been working the plan,
still
staying the
been working the
course.
plans and essentially increasing the amount of money that we save towards our future or the things that we want to do in our life on a routine basis. But like we have been out of debt for a long time before we actually entered YOLO. And I think a lot of people want to be in the YOLO phase when they are in a different season of life, when they got young
Right.
kids and they have debt and all that. And that's problematic.
Look, I respect the people who are part of the fire movement who throw it in gear and just retire, early because they have become financially independent. That's a different situation, but they are like on another level, doing things on another level because they have made a different decision. But I want to get into the make it worth it. So, considering all of what we've talked about and how we went through our decision making process, what is your make it worth it from this Kendrick concert trip?
um, honestly, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be a nerd and say you got to run the numbers, because if we had just automatically said, yeah, we're going, and didn't count the cost ahead of time, we might have hesitated and or said no to actually taking our kids to see Kendrick. And so I think that running the numbers helped us to slow down.
Yeah.
And so I think, counting the cost, doing a budget, really doing some research on the front side before you decide to say yes is a big deal, because it could have gotten way more costly, and also potentially the experience wouldn't have been as enjoyable.
Yeah. That's good.
What about you?
I'd say I like what you said about counting the cost, but I say just be open to options.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the midst of decision making, there's not just one way of doing things.
Yeah.
There are always options, and typically there are multiple options. And if you're open to them, you can accomplish and achieve some great things and experience some great things if you will consider alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Because people can oftentimes only see one way or one path. And if you're open to options and alternatives, you can get, the same or greater outcomes. Because there's something that we got from this that I really hadn't even considered.
Yeah.
And that was like, the relationship building. And I mean, I guess we considered it, but like on the backside of it, it's like that was so much more important than, just you and I going off and doing something. Not that that wouldn't have been valuable or valid, but, I just felt like alternatives and being open to those options definitely can steer you in a good direction as well.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That's good. That's
Yep.
good. Be open and do the budget.
Right. So I think we had a great time.
Yes.
I hope you guys can take some of these things and apply them to your decision making.
Totally worth it for us.
Yep. And so until next time,
we're out.
Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on ForBetterAndWorth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.